So I guess you get a little behind the scenes look as I'm putting the microphone down. I forgot that I still had the microphone up. Anyway, so one of the complaints that I get on Twitter, I know that the guy was teasing a little bit, but I read some comics every day, and the guy was complaining, he was joking of course, but he's like, how can you eat french fries and read comic books at a time like this? And that's one of the things I wanted to address too. Just because I seem like I've been out of it lately, and just because I continue to retweet two particular comics every day, doesn't mean that I'm completely out of it. Believe me, I'm paying attention to what's going on, and sometimes I'll just skim over headlines and stuff, and I'll get a pretty good idea of what's going on. But for example, they just said in the Ukraine that the Russians are basically behind the flyers that were passed around. And according to the article on Fox News, it says, Ukraine's interim government says it has proved that Russian military and intelligence forces are fomenting the unrest that has destabilized the eastern part of that country since Russia's annexation of Crimea last month. Crimea. The New York Times reports that photos and descriptions circulated by the Kiev government show that some of the so-called green men, gunmen who have seized government buildings and demanded Crimea-style referenda on becoming part of Russia, have been identified in other photos as being among Russian troops. And so, of course, there were the pro-Russian government forces that did those awful flyers, and the Ukrainian PM said, we're going to basically find out whoever handed out those flyers, and they're going to get into huge trouble. And oh boy, and then apparently too, there were 3 dead in Ukrainian shootouts, and so obviously it's becoming chaos over there, and that's why I'm agreeing more and more with the traditional interpretation that Russia is actually Rush. And I know that Josephus said that it's something else, but he says, well, according to Wikipedia, you unfortunately have to take what we have to take Wikipedia with a grain of salt, and but they do cite Josephus on this one. And okay, so I'm searching for Ezekiel 38 to 39 war here, and okay, it talks about the book of Ezekiel is the third of the major prophets in Tanakh, and one of the major prophetic books in the Old Testament, following the books of Isaiah and Jeremiah. And so it talks about, okay, and let's see, okay, Gog and Magog, so we go there, and classical and medieval worlds. Okay, so you go for historical identifications, and then classical and medieval worlds. Okay, and it says and they had a map of it too. It's really weird. Separate passages in the Jewish Antiques and Jewish War, the 1st century Jewish historian and scholar Josephus show that Jews of the time identified Gog and Magog with the Scythians, and somewhere they had a map of this. And let's see. As I said, they had a map of this, so I'm going to try to find it. And it's just, let's just say also that Wikipedia is very, very selective about things, and for how much, for lack of a better term, how much crap they give people in terms of, if you say, for example, that Ariel da Costa and other people criticize the Talmud, oh, you're considered an anti-Semite and all this, but here they call Ezekiel 38, quote-unquote Jewish mythology. So, of course, they're very selective, and then they talk about the quote-unquote Jewish founding myth, You can type it on their Wikipedia page and see the founding myths, so if I go ahead and do that, it's just amazing how Wikipedia is selective, and that's another thing that I was thinking of too. I'll get to that in a minute. And I swore they had a map of, maybe, let me try another entry on Wikipedia. Like I said, you gotta take them with a grain of salt, because they're so selective and so biased. And anyway, oh, okay, Sons of Noah, let me try this. And maybe they have the map here. And let's see. Trying to find, here we go. Okay. Josephus gives this map here, and I'm going to put it in a link, because he, let's see, so, it's, well, it tells you who it's attributed to when you look at the, I guess, page of the map itself, and Josephus pretty much interprets Gog and Magog. Okay, so like, Yavon here is Greece, although for some reason it says Yava. I don't know why. Put is Libya. Okay. Guess I'm gonna have to duplicate the tab here and then see what some of this is talking about. Okay, Mitzrayim, yeah, that's Egypt, Canaan. Okay, and then Eudadas. Not exactly sure what he's talking about there. So, probably would have helped if, he put, the guy who created this, would have helped if he put, okay, and then there's apparently another file. So, Josephus pretty much gives pretty much all the nations being Turkish nations, but later interpretations say that basically Gomer is Germany, Rosh is Russia, and then of course Put, Kush, okay, Paras, Persia. I'm trying to remember. Oh, Togarmah being Armenia and Turkey. So, I'm kind of I'm agreeing more with the, let's say, the later interpretations as opposed to Josephus' interpretation, because I mean, even you see the way that Russia's really become very anti-Semitic, has been anti-Semitic throughout history, and the way that they're treating the Ukraine, because the Ukraine is more, for lack of a better term, pro-Jewish or philo-Semitic than Russia is, and there are just other factors. For example, Putin and Medvedev were allies with Iran when Ahmadinejad was in, and now with this Rouhani guy, and so, believe me, I've been paying attention to this stuff, and it's like, the more I look, the more I tend to agree with the interpretation that, yeah, obviously, Russia is Russia, and also it does talk about, okay, so, Hippolytus kind of agreed with, Josephus there, but if you go down later, okay, Jerome talks about Tubal being the Iberians, but I tend to agree that Tubal's in Russia, and, okay, Isidore of Seville, and then, well, the later interpretation, for lack of a better term, comes later, probably in the medieval times, and unfortunately I gotta check the Wikipedia entry, because that might pretty much confirm what I'm saying about it being a medieval interpretation, because where I first saw it was on another website, a much more, in my opinion, a reputable website. And okay, so back to the Ezekiel 38 thing for a minute. And okay, the Middle Ages. Okay, the Middle Ages. That's where. Alright, so the Middle Ages, they did not identify it with any. Let's see. Okay, so the it really kind of began coming to fruition and what have you. Anywhere from the medieval times to the present time, and that's where we got the interpretation that we have now, and I'm tending to agree with the later interpretation, so that's that. And so in my next video, I guess I'll do the shtick about how Wikipedia is very, very selective, and how other sources are selective as well, and that's that. And well, there you go.